Welcome back to the Space Gulag, everybody, your favorite hangout place. Today we're back with another Star Wars theory. This is awesome. This is one of the longest theories I've written in a long time, and it revolves around one of my favorite Jedi of all time, Plo Koon. I try not to go overboard with these, especially for those of you that know that this is one of my favorite Jedi. I try to be fair, so I hope I live up to that standard that I try and set for myself. Also subscribe if you want a chance to win a free lightsaber, and also subscribe to Concordia Jedi down below. Let's get straight into the theory. So today we take a look at what would have been if Plo Koon was the chosen one. The first thing we need to do though is determine the age of Plo Koon. In Legends it said that Plo Koon is about 382 to 417 years old. In canon they say he's around 80. We're gonna go with Legends because I think that gives us more playing room to enlighten the story and make it larger, essentially. So we're going to go with the Legends concept. And though there's a lot of mystery surrounding one of the most powerful Jedi in the Order's history, we'll fill in some of those gaps. So let's begin. Plo Koon is born on the planet Keldor, a planet which has had its fair share of Force-sensitive beings. Plo even had two relatives that were part of the Jedi Order in the future. On Keldor, they were a group of Force users that knew the ways of the Force, called the Baron Do Sages. These sages helped the people of Keldor avoid disasters, which could have been war, or these great big storms that were frequent on Keldor. Eventually, when Keldor joined the Republic, the Jedi took their Force sensitive. Plo Koon would be no exception here. He was born nearly 400 years before the Battle of Yavin in the canonical timeline. He'd be immediately recognized as a special being among the Baron Do Sages. It takes a couple years for the Jedi Order to arrive, to which they would be amazed at the midichlorian count on the young Keldor. Plo Koon would be brought back to the Jedi Temple and trained. As the Chosen One, he'd excel greatly. In canon, Plo would eventually join the Jedi Council as one of the Order's most powerful. In this timeline, though, Plo would excel to that level early in his life. Plo would have a teacher and grow incredibly fast under this teacher, and excel into knightdom. From what we know about Plo Koon, he was extremely well guided as a young Jedi. He knew well about what was right and what was wrong, and the Jedi would be well fluent in the studies of the Order. A few years would go past as Plo Koon would become a master and see his apprentice graduate into a rank of knight. Plo would be welcomed into the Jedi High Council in his late 20s and continued training Jedi Padawans until they became knights. Plo Koon would eventually stop training Jedi Padawans under his own as he reached the age of 100. Plo would partake on missions with Yoda, who was a small Jedi Master with a great power within the Force. The two would travel to former Jedi temples across the galaxy to access knowledge of the Old Order. The two Jedi sparred with one another, and they were extremely powerful with the Force. Though Yoda was much older, Plo Koon had grown in his power. Though Jedi around the temple never knew this. He held himself so modestly and hardly spoke of what he had accomplished in all of his time. He hardly spoke in general. Most of those around the Order just kind of saw him passing by as a normal Jedi. A normal Jedi that's on the High Council after all. Plo Koon also accelerated in the realm of piloting. Plo would use this to stop pirating in the Outer Rim, and throughout his time he would not seek adventure, and he found balance in the Force. Whenever Plo was at the Great Jedi Temple in Coruscant, he spent most of his time mastering lightsaber combat. Plo was great with a lightsaber combat in canon, but this time he would be much greater. Plo would go on to master several of the lightsaber forms, and before he knew it, he had mastered all 7 forms accepted by the Jedi Order, 1 through 7. Most of Plo Koon's time on the Council was peaceful, but he noticed as Grand Masters came and went, there was something changing within the Order. The Order leaned more and more into the Galactic Republic's politics. Plo never liked the idea of this because it seemed to distance the Jedi from the people of the galaxy, who they were supposed to be protecting. These are early morals that he would have learned from the Baron Do Sages back on Keldor. Even though he would have been a small child, these are lessons that they embodied, much more Jedi-like than the Jedi themselves. So Plo Koon would have felt rather disembodied from the Jedi because of how they were acting and how they were becoming politicized rather than protectors of the galaxy. Plo Koon then spent time teaching the younglings inside the Jedi Temple. Plo was then surprised when the Grand Master suddenly died of old age, and the Order needed to welcome another Jedi to the rank of Grand Master. There were 2 contentious Jedi up for the position, and before we go any further, Yoda became Grand Master of the Order around 86 BBY, and we are currently sitting around 190 BBY, so I just want to give you a little time context for where we are in this story, and what we know about Yoda and him becoming the Grand Master. The Council would decide to go with the Chosen One, Plo Koon, over Master Yoda, and this was because it was obvious that the Keldor lived for a long time, much like Yoda's species, but Plo Koon was not just the Chosen One, but extremely gifted with both the Force and the lightsaber. He was also really well-rounded. He was a great Jedi, and he respected the morals of the Jedi, and he would embody what the Jedi needed moving forward. Plo would be honored and humbled by the Council's decision, of course he was, but he would still remain quiet, listening to the Council as they discussed everything without hardly ever needing to speak. Plo then, within the middle of a political discussion regarding the Jedi and the Galactic Republic, stood up. He told the Council that he wanted to distance the Jedi from the Republic, telling them that they were servants to those around the galaxy, not those who sit in power of the galaxy. Plo Koon then thought to himself. For moments. It passed, very shortly, and then he decided upon another idea. An idea that should be instated inside of the Jedi Order. He then told the Council that it was time to move from the Jedi's ivory tower at the center of the Republic to planets around the galaxy. The Council would be in shock. They didn't know what this meant. They didn't really understand what Plo was trying to say to them here. Plo told the Council, though, the Jedi Council, the High Council, would stay here, but that the former Jedi temples and academies around the galaxy would be rebuilt into functioning outposts for justice. There were around 8,000 members in the Order after all, and they needed to expand for the betterment of the galaxy, and as a deterrent if the Sith ever showed themselves again. This move was to spread the Jedi out from the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Coruscant's a great location and all, but in reality, it isolates the Jedi from everybody out in the Outer Rim and the Mid-Rim. The only people that really get to see the Jedi are the people in the core, because the Jedi are there. They're going to miss out on anything that happens in the Outer Rim or the Mid-Rim if they're not out there. So Plo has decided that instead of staying in their ivory tower, he will dispatch the Jedi across the galaxy. The Jedi over the next few decades would expand themselves throughout the Outer Rim and the Mid-Rim, each temple with its own council who reported to the High Council. Plo Koon would always visit these temples. He would come to train younglings and to speak to the council members in person. With the rapid Jedi expansion, crime lords in the Outer Rim would face difficulties profiting. Then it would happen. War. Nearly 100 years before the Clone Wars, crime lords across the Outer Rim ganged up to stop the Jedi from enforcing Republic law. And with a swift and decisive attack on a Jedi temple in the Outer Rim, the Jedi were out war. Now because Plo had made a treaty with the Republic stating if a Jedi temple was attacked while keeping the peace, the Republic had to protect the Order's interest. And so they did. Plo made his way to the Outer Rim with a Republic fleet. Jedi across the galaxy converged on the Outer Rim, world of Bathua. And there they encountered pirate forces besieging the Jedi temple. The locals, though, were fighting off the pirates, as were the Jedi, but when reinforcements arrived, the pirates retreated. But Plo Koon followed them. Why would the natives of Bathua be encouraged to fight for the Jedi? Well, the Jedi were keeping peace. The Jedi were the peace bringers of the galaxy. Why wouldn't they fight for the people that have been fighting for them for the last several decades? Plo found the pirates staging a fleet over Tatooine, not far away from Bathua, and informed the Republic of where the pirates were. But before Plo could escape, he was encountered by a wing of fighters. Plo was outnumbered, so he took the chase down into the canyons of Tatooine. Ducking and barreling through Beggar's Canyon, Plo was able to lose some fighters while destroying a few others. By the time Plo had finished his chase and defeated the fighters that followed him, he decided to look for the crime lords on the planet, and he found the Hutt family palace. He landed outside and entered. Surrounded by guards and pirates from the Black Sun and the Pikes, he entered the palace of Ganuncia, the Queen Crime Lord on Tatooine. Plo requested she stop the war before more lives were lost, and she felt threatened in her own home, so of course she wouldn't. But she had a bargaining. She pulled out a hologram showing the battle ensuing over Tatooine. and she asked the Jedi to stop the war effort on the crime families so they may preside over the Outer Rim without any resistance. And Plo couldn't do this. This was not the way of the Jedi, and this was not what he would allow the crime families to do. Plo pleaded that her and her fellow crime families surrender, but they didn't. Instead, Gununcia told her men to kill the Jedi. Plo Koon ignited his blade, and without killing a single man, stopped the guards from hurting him. Maybe some of them lost a few limbs, but Plo was meticulous about not killing anybody. The room then stood back from Plo, afraid of what he could do if he decided to unleash any rage that he might have. Gununcia still wouldn't surrender. It wasn't in her nature. She was a Hutt after all. Rather, she pleaded to make a deal, and Plo wouldn't settle for it. Instead, he pulled his hologram out, and there was the Chancellor of the Republic, Chasian Pian. Plo allowed discussions to begin, as Plo left the Hutt Palace to take a look at what the battle looked like overhead in space. The pirates had lost the space battle. They were retreating back to the palace for a final stand, and others surrendered to the Jedi Republic coalition. Those who retreated back to the palace saw Plo standing outside and thought it meant that their resistance had ended. The Republic sanctioned the crime families in the Outer Rim into almost non-existence. The crime families would eventually fall and be lost to time. The Jedi would memorialize those lost in the war and instate a new temple on the planet of Geonosis. Gununcia had made an agreement that would last 100 years, saying that the Jedi couldn't move to Tatooine, so they moved to the next closest planet, Geonosis. The Geonosians were fine with it. They never saw a quarrel with the Jedi, and since the Jedi weren't technically part of the Republic, it never really mattered that they established a temple on Geonosis. For the next 100 years, everything would be fine, until around 32 BBY, where cracks in the foundation of the Republic began to show. Chancellor Valorum requested that the Jedi get involved in issues over Naboo, and Plo decided because it could result in a humanitarian issue that he'd allow the Jedi to get involved. 2 Jedi would be sent: Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. All of the Phantom Menace would play out the same, but the only difference is, on Tatooine, they wouldn't find the boy. Not because he hadn't been born, but because he was found by the Jedi who were on Mos Eisley patrolling. The boy named Anakin Skywalker, who was born from the Force, was brought to the Great Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Plo Koon took the boy as his final apprentice, deciding that the boy would be his responsibility, especially considering how odd it was for someone to be born of the Force. With that, Anakin would be trained at the Jedi Temple. Since he was born, he'd grow exceptionally fast and have no attachment issues. Qui-Gon would be stuck on the planet, so the Jedi would send the Master of the Order to help out the 2 Jedi stuck on Tatooine. But when Master Yoda arrived, he saw a battle in the desert. 2 Jedi were fighting a Sith. Yoda immediately communicated with Plo, telling him that the Sith had returned, and then Yoda joined the fight. Plo told Anakin that he would be back for more training. As Anakin was understanding, he went to his quarters to meditate. He was incredibly insightful at his young age, but his master was the chosen one after all. Maul would know that he was outmatched and make a run for his ship, and the Jedi let him escape so they could throw a tracking device on his ship and relate it to Plo, who was just entering his starfighter. The tracking device, though, was in lightspeed heading towards the core worlds. Plo waited idle inside of his fighter, and then the ship arrived outside of Coruscant. Yoda had followed the tracker after giving Qui-Gon the credits he needed to get the ship repaired. Maul brought his ship down through orbit into the industrial sector on Coruscant, which had been long abandoned. Yoda and Plo followed. They told the High Council where they were going in case they didn't survive the ordeal. They landed near the ship and followed the sounds of voices. Plo Koon peered around the corner and saw 2 Sith Lords, hooded and walking away from them. Then one of them turned around and shouted at the other for being tracked. The 2 Jedi ignited their blades, telling the Sith to surrender. With no means to escape, Palpatine and Maul ignited their blades. Plo sensed fear, though. Maul was afraid. Not of Palpatine, but of the 2 Jedi that he had to fight. Plo knew if he took Palpatine out of the fight, Maul would yield. And then a scream was heard, a scream not heard for 1,000 years in the Republic. A scream, a battle cry of the Sith. Palpatine lunged across the room at the two Jedi. Both were ready for this fight, though. Yoda moved into attack form, throwing Maul off balance, and Palpatine, though, was a fine duelist. He kept Plo on his feet, but Plo changed through cyber forms, keeping Palpatine off his game. There was no way for Palpatine to play Plo's game because Plo kept him so off balance. Plo specifically used Form 7 against Palpatine because he saw it being so useful. He saw that Palpatine couldn't defend against Form 7 as well as he could of the other forms, so he harnessed on Form 7, otherwise known as Vapad. Yoda pushed Maul back and to the ground, telling him to yield. Palpatine took a moment to send lightning across the room at Yoda. As Palpatine lifted his fingers, though, Plo knew he had Palpatine in the spot. Plo shot rounds of electric judgment into Palpatine's stomach, jolting the Sith Lord. Palpatine couldn't send the lightning towards Yoda because of the jolts he took from Plo Koon. Plo, though, ensured to be Jedi about it as he could. He used electric judgment, and electric judgment was used as a stun, not as a weapon. Palpatine fell to the floor, dropping his blade. Plo told the Sith again to surrender, and of course, they couldn't. Palpatine jumped back away from Plo's blade, sending lightning at the Grand Master. Plo was fast to deflect the lightning back to Palpatine. Plo pushed closer and closer to Palpatine before striking down the Sith Lord. Maul tried his best to escape, but he was stopped by Yoda, and Maul surrendered. Plo requested for a shuttle to pick up Maul and Yoda. Plo would investigate the area, seeing relics of the Sith that he had never seen before, and Plo knew one thing, that the Sith had returned. Plo would spend days inside the complex, analyzing and looking for any source of where the Sith came from, and he found nothing. But to be sure, he kept his eyes out for the Sith. Maul was arrested and frozen away in carbon freezing, and locked away forever. And the council around the galaxy were informed that the Sith had returned, and to keep an eye out for any Sith. In other words, to keep a high alert. Years would pass without a viewing of the Sith. Anakin had finished his training and was now a knight. Plo even assumed they were gone, but he did feel a disturbance still present in the Force. Though it would be all through happenstance. After years of feeling the presence of darkness in the Force, Plo Koon would take his former apprentice Anakin Skywalker to the industrial sector to check the Sith hideout that the Sith had been defeated in all those years ago. Though something felt off, and Anakin felt it immediately. Plo knew what that meant. Plo told Anakin to stay back. As he peered around the corner, he saw a tall Sith speaking the ancient dialect of the Sith. Plo came around the corner steadily, and the Sith Lord, Darth Plagueis, turned around. He was never assassinated by Palpatine. A lightsaber rose from Plagueis and he walked forward, and there was anger in his eyes. His apprentice had betrayed him, and he had no heir to the Sith throne. Plagueis was the last Sith. Plo ignited his blade. Their duel was fierce as Anakin watched from behind. Plagueis was outmatched though, and it was visible from the first strike of the duel. Plo was ruthless with his attacks. He was a true master of the blade. As Plagueis fell back, Plo would tell him, as he did his former apprentice, to surrender. Plagueis wouldn't, as he lifted his lightsaber to try and strike at Plo, but it made no difference. Plo was too quick, and he killed the last Sith Lord. Plo Koon would tell the councils across the galaxy that he believed the Sith to have been eliminated. The Jedi would continue to help those throughout the galaxy, and continue being isolated from the grander Republic. Plo Koon would serve the rest of his life as the Grand Master, and forever be the chosen one who brought balance to the Force. Woo! Okay guys, so what did you guys think of that? I really like that. Okay, maybe it's because I like Plo a lot, but I tried to tell a story about how Plo's character is shown and developed throughout the Clone Wars, and that's kind of what I based a lot of this on. It's how Plo was when we saw him, and a lot of that came from who he was beforehand, and a lot of who he was beforehand was a good person. It was a good individual. He was brought up at the Jedi Temple, but even more than that, even if he was brought up on Keldor, he would have brought up better than the Jedi were in general. The Baron Dosages were amazing. They were much better than Jedi, and they were respected as such. So I believe at the certain point where Plo would become Grand Master, at a certain point in his quote-unquote reign, he would decide to spread the Jedi out. And I think it's an interesting concept of seeing the Jedi more spread out throughout the galaxy, because it allows them to have enforcement on keeping the peace, not having slaves, not allowing slavery. That's why I mentioned Anakin being at the Grand Jedi Temple, and I brought Anakin into the story because it's to show that the Jedi had eradicated slavery in the Outer Rim. In other words, the Jedi did what they needed to do. They were the Jedi. They were the Jedi that the galaxy needed, not the politicians that they didn't need. And I think with a real Jedi, a Jedi that really cared about the Jedi Order, and I'm not saying Yoda or Mace or any of them didn't, but a Jedi that was true to himself and true to the Jedi Code, such as Plo Koon, I think he would have strayed away from the Republic, especially at a time such as about 190 BBY. I had to play around with some times here. There's a huge gap in Plo's history where that doesn't happen. I also included Chancellor Chasen PN, and that's actually an actual guy from canon. The Hutt leader though, Ganuncia, I made that one up. That one's all me. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this theory. I try to incorporate some new characters into it, some characters from lore that you might not know about, and yeah. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. I love you all. Don't forget to subscribe to Concordia Jedi and myself. He made the awesome intro that we have here. And don't forget to subscribe to me if you want a chance to win a free lightsaber. That's right, I said free lightsaber. Anyways, guys, I love you all. Spread the love, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And always remember, may the Force be with you.